Meanwhile, the White House proposed budget for fiscal year 2026 is drawing criticism from cancer research advocates.
Yeah, that's because it slashes nearly 40% of funding from the National Cancer Institute, just as cancer deaths are expected to climb. Our Washington, D.C. correspondent Brendan Scanlon is joining us live right now with more details. Brendan, you also have reaction from both parties in Congress. What did you find out?
Hey there, Mike and Eva. Good evening. Yeah, well, those proposed cuts paired with some sweeping changes in that recently signed One Big Beautiful Bill Act could deliver some devastating blows to cancer research, according to advocates, as well as for rare cancer research, and also for helping folks in some of those underserved communities as well. In a year when more than 600,000 Americans are expected to die from cancer, the White House's proposed fiscal year 2026 budget calls for a $2.7 billion cut to the National Cancer Institute, down more than 37% from current levels.
Cutting the resources for NCI will drastically reduce our chances of coming up with cures for cancer.
Missy Miller with the Mesothelioma Center says the proposed cuts and less funding for Medicaid could lead to fewer treatment options, delayed drug development, and a rise in preventable deaths.
The programs for prevention can really help them find out about it ahead of time. So really these cuts that they're proposing to the NCI's budget could lead to fewer treatment options, delayed drug development, and also increased cancer mortality for these rare cancers specifically. Mainly in the underserved populations is where you're going to see the biggest hit. Rural hospitals are going to be affected immensely, and that's mainly because a lot of rural hospitals have Medicare and Medicaid patients.
Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle are reacting.
So it's devastating. It would make a lot of cancer trials impossible. It would harm NIH-funded cancer research and clinical trials in New York because it will limit the amount of funding available for those research facilities overall.
But Republicans say any proposed cuts are all theoretical. It's Congress that controls the purse strings.
I've not met someone yet here in the House of Representatives that isn't for full-throated funding for cancer research. Cancer affects every socioeconomic corner, every state in the union, every community in the country. And it's something that we have to be vigilant to fight against.
And Mike and Eva, Congressman Nick Langworthy and some other Republicans tell me that they're pushing for more transparency in that grant process, making sure that money for those grants and that grant funding is actually going to cancer research and not some of those other indirect costs, be it administrative salaries or other things of that nature. So they tell me that's something they'll be watching for and looking at very closely throughout this appropriations process. Reporting live on Capitol Hill for Erie News Now, I'm Brendan Scanlon. Mike, Eva, back to you.